On this episode of Salt Lake Insider, we're sitting down with Chris and Krissie, the hosts of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. On this episode... Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Salt Lake Insider episode number 13. I am in South Salt Lake right now with Chris and Krissie Holifield, right?
Correct, yeah.
And they are the hosts of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. And I've been watching these guys from from a distance for a while. They do a really, really good job with their podcast. They are releasing episode 300 later this weekend, right?
Yeah, this upcoming weekend usually comes out Sunday evening, Monday morning for the drive into work.
Sure. Fantastic. They've done 300 episodes, which is incredible. We're on episode 13, and I feel like we've been doing this forever. So they're doing an awesome job, and they've interviewed some really, really cool people all around Salt Lake, and I just want to hear their story, how they got started, why they got started, why they keep doing this show, what they've learned along the way. And so Chris and Krissie, tell me a little bit about why you're doing this podcast and how you got started in the first place.
Should I probably?
I think you should probably start because you started it.
Yeah, so I started the podcast. It was August of 2012 is when I started, or when I released the first episode. I probably started researching podcasts about a year prior to that.
Okay.
There's a local podcast. Well, it's not a local. There's another podcast from Salt Lake City here, Geek Show, which I'm not sure if you've heard of that or not.
I have not.
I knew some of those guys, and they seem to have a lot of fun doing a podcast. And I'm like, well, I want to do a podcast. What should I do it about? And I just thought it would be a lot of fun to find out about the people of Salt Lake. You know, a lot of times people get overlooked here. Right?
Sure.
You'll see them at the downtown farmers markets or events or bands, authors, whatever, but you don't know their story. And at the time, there's a few publications here in Salt Lake City, and they're not always able to spotlight those people. So I said, how fun would it be if I was able to record that conversation?
Right.
Now, when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. I thought, well, I could just take my iPhone into businesses. I could just walk into a business and say, talk to me.
Right.
Well, I had to learn, along the way. It doesn't really work that way, Chris. You have to schedule interviews.
Right.
You have to plan it out. How are you going to do it?
Yeah.
But I didn't have a lot of guidance. Again, I taught myself everything. And you could Google how to do a podcast. Anyway, I started with 2 episodes a week. It got a little overwhelming, so I cut back to 1. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, what's kept me going? I went through a divorce it's been close to about 5 years. But I started the podcast, started going through a divorce shortly after starting it, and it got me through that divorce. It's something to look forward to every week, and at the time, actually,
right.
two times a week. So I was able to, even meet new people in Salt Lake. At the time, I was living in a 200 square foot apartment downtown Salt Lake City. They were coming over to my apartment to do these conversations, these interviews, but it gave me something to look forward to. It pulled me out of that depression that a divorce could do for a lot of people. And since then, I met Krissie. It's going on 2 years now. I met her. She's joined up with the podcast, and I always wanted
dynamic duo.
I always wanted to. I always wanted to co-host. I did it by
Really?
myself before, but for some reason, a co-host, especially Krissie, she comes from a comedy background, so she's able to bring the humor to the show. I can tend to be a little serious.
Sure.
Yeah, the peanut gallery is what I bring, really.
Sure.
That's about it.
Right.
So everywhere I go now, it's like I keep running. Oh yeah, hey, so it's like you can get to know a lot of people.
Right.
Well, and there's so many people
Exactly.
in Salt Lake doing things that not everyone's aware of. And now that it's growing and more people are moving here and there's more going on, it's nice to keep spotlighting the people that are bringing culture and art and small businesses, music, just all the things that are happening.
Absolutely.
We really have a ton going on here that people don't know about.
Most people politics is one thing, but they just want to know about their city. They want to know.
Well, and mainstream news gets depressing. Like,
Yep.
you don't really get to see the amazing things that are happening around you. It's more fun for them to point out the depressing things happening.
Sure.
So it's exciting for us because we get to point out the really exciting things happening and watch people live out their dreams and talk to them about it. Yes. And so it's really motivational for us. It's just a great thing to do.
Awesome.
Dude, after an interview, like that connection I get from somebody after a podcast interview, it invigorates me.
Sure.
It's like a natural drug, a rush that kind of, wow, I just connected with that person. I got them to open up. I mean, I've had interviews where I've had people open up so much they start crying, and because they're sharing their story, and it's such an emotional experience for a lot of people, and they've never had an outlet like a podcast to be able to do that in, and so to give somebody that opportunity. And what's actually been really cool with the podcast is it's not just Salt Lake people. A couple of weeks ago, I had a guy reach out to me who wants to move here from Texas, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I found your podcast. Can you kind of give me the inside tour of Salt Lake City?"
Nice.
So I showed him around, and it's like just the connections. We have some listeners in New Zealand that come out here.
Sure.
They've been coming out every year, and I hang out with them and show them around Salt Lake. I mean,
you're the Salt Lake expert to those people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. So you've done 300 interviews, right? Do you have one favorite or a couple favorites that really stick out as being like?
I think for me, a lot of for interviews, and I don't know, Krissie might even have a different answer for her, but for me, a lot of times it's even been people I've looked up to, say in radio.
Sure.
I've had certain radio people on the podcast, and so to have a chance to sit down with them, that's really stuck out for me.
Sure. As
favorites.
I got to be honest, most of my favorites are kind of like the badass ladies in Salt Lake.
Right.
Because Utah is not always known for its, not kindness, but they don't really treat women equally all the time in a general aspect.
Sure.
And so really seeing all these ladies kind of push the limits and come out and just do the stuff that they want to do.
Right.
Even though the culture hasn't always been the most helpful for them.
Sure.
They're really changing everything here. And so for me, It's like all the ladies we get to talk to.
What's in the future for the I Am Salt Lake podcast? Do you have any guests in particular coming up that you're excited for? Do you have any plans for the future you want to talk about? Anything like that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to answer, or I mean, basically right now we just had a baby. So we're getting used to kind of that. Thank you. So we're kind of trying to figure out.
We're still trying to not drown.
Yeah, we want to keep the podcast afloat, produce more podcasts, kind of get through the holidays are right around the corner. Get through that. We'd like to do. We've done some live shows.
Cool.
We'd like to get back out there and do some live shows. Probably just more of the same.
1,000 episodes.
Get up to 1,000.
Let's get there.
Get to 1,000 episodes. Yeah. I definitely would like to bring more of the community into it, trying to figure out ways to kind of get more that live
getting
feel.
Feedback from
people. It'd be a lot of fun to be able to get more, on the spot. What do you have any questions for our guest type of thing?
Sure.
Even integrate Facebook Live and stuff like that.
I was just thinking Facebook Live could be pretty powerful if you Facebook Live your episodes.
And we really want to, we've started an events calendar, so we want to get people to know what's actually happening in Salt Lake so they can actually, given any day if they're like, or someone's coming into town, what do we do? You can go to the website and find something happening, hopefully.
Sure. Cool. So have you guys lived in Salt Lake forever, or are you transplants to Salt Lake? How long have you been here? And then also, since you are so deeply involved in the culture of Salt Lake, what do you guys like most about this area, about this city?
Do you want to answer that first, or do you want me to
She's
answer?
Grinning, so I think she has something to say.
Do you want me to answer first, or do you want to go first?
You go for it first.
So I was born in California, and raised in Southern California. I moved to Utah County when I was about 15, 16 years old. I hated it. I hated Utah. I hated it. Right. But I think a lot of it is because I was down in that area. When I was about 18, 19, I moved out to the East Coast, lived out in Pennsylvania for about 5 years, moved back to Utah. And I told myself, well, if I move back to Utah, I'm going to live in Salt Lake City. I'm going to try to, see if I can dig it a little bit more if I move to Salt Lake. So I moved to Salt Lake when I was about 24. I'll be 40 in December. So I've been living in the Salt Lake area for like, 15 years? So, I've lived a few different places. I like Salt Lake. What I like about Salt Lake is it's big enough, but small enough.
Yes.
You feel that like you're in a community, but yet it's big enough if you want to escape a little bit. The local arts and the local crafts in that community is very supportive here. There's a lot going on in that community, and I really like that. That's one of my favorite things about Salt Lake is, especially like with things like the downtown farmers markets and over the summer Craft Lake City, big events like that, the big festivals that pulls everybody out to support each other. I love that. I thrive off of that. I thrive off of creativity. It's an easy place to live again for now, right? It doesn't take forever to get places,
right?
Like LA or huge cities like that.
Right.
It's but that's kind of what I don't know if that really answered your questions 100%, but
thoroughly, yes,
yeah. So
yes,
I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm a transplant. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I vowed that I would never come out to Utah. I was raised LDS, and I was like, I'm never going out to Utah. Everyone out there's weird.
Right.
And it ended up coming out to Utah.
And you weren't wrong
for
about
college.
That.
I wasn't wrong
weird.
about that. Everybody here's no, they're not weird. It's great. I love it. I was really surprised how much I fell in love with the area. The people and the creativity I did not realize existed. I thought it was a very stifled environment.
Right.
So the more I learned and the more I got involved and met people and met Chris and saw how much the arts and the culture and like you said, how supportive everyone is. I got into the comedy scene. The comedy scene here is wonderful.
Nice.
And the comedians are all super, super, like they have each other's back. They're, it's not
tight-knit,
cutthroat. Yeah, I'd say it's tight-knit and everyone's really supportive. And so there's so many ways to be creative out here.
And I think a lot of it is a lot of people don't know where to go.
Sure.
Right? To find out the stuff to do. That's why like even what you're doing is incredible. You got to find those resources, connect with people, even using a resource like Facebook to connect with people. It's so important because if you don't look around and see what's going on, I mean, there's always stuff to do.
Whatever you're interested in, there is something going on here.
There's a lot to do and a lot going on. And I mean, that's what we're trying to spotlight with I Am Salt Lake. I mean, even down to you asking what we would like to do. I'd love to, even kind of create small group tours of places, distilleries and breweries and stuff like that, just to showcase stuff and get that intimate experience with our listeners.
Sure. All right. Thanks for watching Salt Lake Insider episode 13. If you want to connect with these guys and the I Am Salt Lake podcast, just go to the very confusing domain name, iamsaltlake.com. Who would have thought? You can listen to all your episodes there, right?
Right there online, or go download it really in any podcast player.
iTunes, obviously. And
Stitcher Radio, Google Play.
Fantastic.
Yeah, even on YouTube. They're on YouTube.
Awesome.
Too, so you can listen that way.
Perfect. So I think there's this thing called Google where if you just plug in I Am Salt Lake podcast, you might just find them.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So thanks for watching Salt Lake Insider episode 13. We'll catch you next week.